Alright guys, today we are going to be doing cha-ching number 88. I have been trying to tack on a little more into my cha-chings each time as far as how many items I go over because I still am pretty far behind with my cha-chings. So let's just get straight on to this one. The first thing that I have was this really awesome juice pitcher by Hazel Atlas. It had kind of like an atomic starburst type of design, which, you know, is pretty much what sold this piece. That kind of print, when you can find it on like an older item, definitely seems to sell really well. It's a very popular kind of look. Anyway, that sold for $70.99, and I'm pretty sure that came from a yard sale, and I'd say we spent less than $3 for it. Next item we have came from an auction. This was a Harley Davidson tractor trailer, like a die-cast tractor trailer by Matchbox. This sold for $79.99. I think Eric paid about $20 for it at the auction, and I think we have two of those. I don't know if he kept the one or if I still have one listed. Not entirely sure there, but I know we got two that day. Next we have this ceramic duck head. This is something you can hang in your kitchen to put your towels on, hang your aprons by. I have sold some of these in the past on a much smaller scale. This one was slightly larger than some of the ones I've sold in the past, and I actually seen one of these when I was at a rummage sale, and I didn't pick it up because at the time this one still hadn't sold yet. And a lot of times when I'm out and about and I see something that I've picked up and I have listed, if it hasn't sold yet, I usually don't pick it up because I'm like, oh, well, I already have one and it hasn't sold. So yeah, I probably should have picked it up, but you know, that's what happens. Anyway, this sold for $25.99, and that probably came from a yard sale as well. I'd say I spent $1 on it. Next we have a bathing suit by a company called MIRACLESUIT. So this is like one of those bathing suits that's supposed to, you know, make you look thinner or whatever. I got this at a fill-a-bag rummage sale, so in the grand scheme of things, $1 or less I paid for that, and it sold for $35.99. Next we have, this next item did go to a subscriber. This went to Sandra, and Sandra actually just purchased two things from me recently. So thank you, Sandra. I am actually combining your last order. You had purchased something yesterday and then you purchased something today. So I'm gonna combine it for you and give you back some shipping costs. So she had purchased this Virgin Mary planter. This was by someone named Nancy Pugh was the name on it. This did come from, I believe, an auction, and it was probably on a flat or a box lot where, you know, I won a couple different things for, you know, a set price. Anyway, that sold for $19.99, and that did go to Sandra. Next item we have was this origami, what they call prison art. It was like an origami eagle. I have seen these at auctions before, and they were always described as prison art. I'm not sure if that's actually what it was per se, but that's just what I always heard it referred to. So I did put that in my title. Anyway, I did get this at an auction, and I paid $1 for this one, and then there was also another one, and I actually haven't listed that one yet. It wasn't as like detailed as the one that sold here. So $1 for that, and it sold for $39.99. Next we have, this is from 1968. It was a shrink machine, and it did come with the little papers that you color, and then you put it in this little like, well, it's not even really an oven. I think it was missing the lid. So when I had won this at an auction and it came with other stuff, I think it came with some creepy crawler molds and things of that nature, and Eric was like, well, he was just going to pretty much throw away this machine and all the little shrinkies, and I was like, no way, like I will list that someone might just want the shrinky, someone, you know, could still use it. It was, you know, missing the lid, but it still lit up and worked and all of that. And it sold for $19.99. So just goes to show you, just because you might think, you know, someone doesn't want something or that kind of thing doesn't mean that it won't sell. I mean, it might not sell, but you know, you can always take the chance and see if there's anyone out there looking for it. Next, we have a Cat's Meow piece. This was for the Ocean City Fire Company. I think this one came from, I had gotten like a big box of not Ocean City. I had gotten a big box of Cat's Meow wooden, you know, buildings and things like that at an auction. A lot of them were Maryland themed. A lot of them were Baltimore specific, but there was also a couple of Ocean City pieces in there. So I sold them. I think I sold every single one that I got. I lotted up all of the Baltimore ones specifically, and then I sold the Ocean City ones separately. So this one here sold for $12.50, and I say I paid like $5 for the whole box of the Cat's Meow. So people do still buy them. But I just don't know, you know, if it was because these were specifically Baltimore and Ocean City specific that they sold or not. But you know, I do come across Cat's Meow a lot, and I don't pick it all up. I only pick up, you know, the ones that I feel are slightly more specific, because I know I see, and I'm sorry to get off on a little tangent, when I come across them, a lot of them are like local to me, and I live in like a smaller town, so I just feel like if someone were looking for them, it would be someone more or less local. Like no one from like California is gonna want my little town's like churches, like cat meows and stuff like that. So I'm a little more picky when it comes to picking them up, is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, next item was a coffee mug. This was an advertising piece for the Mustang Ranch in Nevada, which is a brothel. Eric had won a box of these at an auction. So we listed them obviously separately. Only one has sold so far, and I think we have, I want to say maybe 5 more, but this one did sell for $25.99. I thought that they would go a little bit quicker than what they are, just considering the subject of them is just, you know, out there. But anyway, we still have some, but I think he paid maybe $10 for all of them, so we will make our money back on them pretty well once we can sell a couple more. Let's see, we sold this is from 2005. This was called an Emoto Furby. So Furbies can sell. You know, I've pretty much sold every single Furby I have ever listed. I do have some Furby Christmas ornaments that haven't sold yet, but you know, all of like the actual talking electronic kind of Furbies have sold. Anyway, I won this at an auction. I can't remember exactly what I paid for it, but I did pay up. I still made a decent enough profit on it. It did sell for $129.99. This was in its original box, but it was an open box. It wasn't like still sealed or anything like that. Next we have another die-cast truck. This one is by ERTL, and it was an advertising for Nesquik that sold for $29.99, and that did come from an auction. At one point, Eric and I went to an auction. It was a lot of die-cast trucks, so I took the time to research which ones were worth the most money. So definitely not all of them are created equal when it comes to those types of die-cast trucks that have the advertising type of things on the sides of them. So definitely, if you come across them, do some research, run a comp on them, because you know, some of them do sell decently and some are pretty worthless in my opinion. So but this one was a good one, and I'd say we paid maybe $5 for that. Next we have an Avon perfume in Fantasque. Fantastique. That sold for $29.99. A lot of my Avon items, I know I've said before, came from an auction. I was winning just trays full of Avon for like, you know, $1 or just a couple of dollars. So I've been doing really well with, you know, some older Avon items. I would pick them up if they were like super duper cheap, but I wouldn't go out of my way to spend a lot on, you know, a bunch of Avon items. Just depending on what it is, basically. Like, I would be more interested in perfumes, hairbrushes, and some like discontinued shades of lipstick and stuff like that. Next we have a lot of, these were old lead military soldiers by Barclay. Won these at an auction. It was a bunch of different figures. I still have some listed, and I still do have, like, I think it's called Plasticville. It came with like a whole like Plasticville type of village thing. I haven't listed that yet. I'm still trying to figure out, you know, what all pieces went with it and that type of thing, because it was just like a box full of like random stuff. Anyway, these soldiers sold for $29.99. I can't remember what I paid for that lot. Like I said, this CHING, like these items have sold like a while back. Next we have another Furby. This one was from 1998 and it was of an owl. Eric purchased this at a church yard sale. I think he paid $2 for it, maybe $3 for it. Again, it wasn't sealed in the box. It was an open box. That sold for $49.99. Next we have an old, you guys, if you watch all my CHINGs, you saw I had sold a bunch of vintage Apple computer games and stuff like that. We have one at an auction. So other ones have been selling. I still do have some listed as well. This is from 1983 and it was called the Complete Graphics System for the old Apple computer. That sold for $59.99. I sold a set of brass duck head bookends. I'm pretty sure these either came from a yard sale or an auction. I'm not entirely sure. They sold for $15.99. Brass is another one of those things where just because it's brass doesn't mean it's worth like a whole lot. There are some brass pieces that can sell really well, and then there's some that don't really sell that great. So this one wasn't like, you know, an amazing sale, but I know I probably didn't spend much on those. But if I found them again, I don't know, I might be a little hesitant to pick them back up. Next we have another Furby. This one was also from 1998, also from that church sale, and this one was supposed to be a giraffe. Anyway, it sold for the same price of $49.99. I sold, okay, these next two items went to the same person. I don't think it was a subscriber. I'm pretty sure the person who bought these, I don't know if they're the same one who bought my last Wem's pig or Wem's pig, but at an auction I had won 3 different ones of these, and oh my gosh, they were worth so much money, and I'm so thankful that I took the time to research them because I had no idea. I didn't know anything about these pigs at all. So I think it was in my last CHING I sold the last one, which was it had shamrocks all over it. So this next one had roses. That one sold for $204.50. These are just like ceramic pigs about yay big. And then the other one had some clovers and stuff on, and I can't even read, my pen bled through the page. $118.50. So those were great. I barely paid much for those at all because no one else knew what they were. So that's the kind of stuff I strive for when it comes to auctions, is, you know, finding those things that like nobody else knows about. Nobody knows the worth of something, because as soon as you have one or two other people who know the worth of something, that's when the price gets driven up and it all comes down to who's willing to pay the most to make the less kind of thing when it comes to live auctions. Next we have a Bath and Body Works body spray. This was in the scent Aquamarine. This actually isn't even really that old of a fragrance, but it was discontinued, so people are looking for it. That sold for $49.99, and I did get that at a yard sale. I'd say I paid about $2 for it. I sold a pair of Montana West sunglasses. These had kind of like an American flag style look to them. Those sold for $19.99. They did come from an auction. I'd say I spent maybe $2 or $3 on those. I sold a Donegal, Ireland, little ceramic kind of like baby carriage that had shamrocks on it. This I'm pretty sure came on a flat of stuff I won at an auction. That sold for $9.99. I sold another Department 56 Crinkles Halloween ornament. This one was of a jail dog. I know I had said before in my last CHING video that a new feature that eBay is doing is letting you know when someone is a repeat buyer, and that is awesome because it helps to let you know you know, that someone purchased before. So I'm pretty sure this was a repeat buyer, and I'm pretty sure it was just someone who purchased other Halloween ornaments from me, but I'm not entirely sure, so I just wanted to make mention in case it is a subscriber. Their name is Ginger. Ginger, if you are a subscriber and you are watching me, thank you. I don't know, like off the top of my head, if it was a subscriber or, you know, it's just a repeat buyer who is purchasing multiple Halloween ornaments of mine, but I didn't want to leave someone out, so I wanted to make mention of that. Next item we have was a Jack Daniel's mason jar set. At one point, Eric and I went to an auction where it was like a bunch of Jack Daniel's stuff. If you guys have been watching my CHINGs, you saw all of the crazy Jack Daniel's items we sold for really good money. This one was no exception. That sold for $135. And again, we went into that auction and we did all of our research before we went in, so we knew what things were worth. So that's why it's so important to do research on items so you know the worth of stuff and you're not, you know, hurting yourself by overpaying at the auction and stuff like that. Next we have, speaking of, Eric was just at an auction yesterday and there was a bunch of those old cast iron chocolate molds. Again, if you've been watching my videos, you've seen me sell old cast iron chocolate molds for really, really, really good money, and there was some at this auction, so we already knew that, you know, the worth of these chocolate molds, but unfortunately there were two other people there who pretty much knew as well, so he did have to pay a little more for them than what we were getting them for at the auction where we won the other ones, but he still won a bunch. Like, oh my gosh, he's got a big box downstairs full of chocolate molds, so we're going to be listing them soon, so crossing fingers that we make really good profit off of those. There's some really awesome ones in there. There's deer. I got more of like the frogs on the little old-fashioned bicycles. There's bell snickles in there, and yeah, there's some good ones in there. Anyway, off topic, back on topic. We are at a vintage this was a vintage hat. It said C.K. Bear and Sons chipping potatoes. So just like an old trucker hat. I got this at a yard sale. I'd say I spent $1 or less for it. And that sold for $19.99. As far as like vintage snapback hats go, I just kind of buy ones that seem a little interesting to me, especially if they're like older advertisement pieces. I liked the fact that this one had a potato chip on it. I just thought, you know, it was just cool looking. So I kind of just go by you know, what I'm drawn to when it comes to those hats. And especially if they're cheap enough, like I don't sit there and look every single one up and things like that. Like I'll just take the ones that, you know, I think are interesting pretty much. Next we have a set of 8 Hazel Atlas. These were Daisy Sour Cream glasses. Those sold for $39.99, and those did come from an auction. I sold an Estee Lauder multi-dimensional powder. This was brand new, still sealed. I picked this up at kind of like an estate sale. I paid $1 for it, and this is one of those items that is a little bit harder to find. That sold for $39.99. That's why I love picking up beauty items. Next item was an Avon perfume in the scent Velvet Amari. That sold for $9.99. Again, auction winning, probably came with other Avon perfumes for like $1. I sold an Arnold Schwarzenegger tank top. I got this at a yard sale. I'm pretty sure I paid $1, maybe $2 for it. It wasn't vintage or anything like that. It had kind of like a vintage styled look to it, but it wasn't vintage. And it still sold though for a decent amount, $39.99. So it probably had to do more or less with like the subject of the tank top itself, and not necessarily the fact that it wasn't necessarily vintage. I sold an Avon nativity piece of the cow that sold for $16.99. That came from an auction. I had won a bunch of the Avon nativity pieces, and I was selling them all separately because there were some pieces of that Avon nativity set. The white porcelain set can sell really, really well. So I just, you know, listed all of those separately, and I have another Avon nativity set to list, and I'll probably list those closer to Christmas, mainly because I have so much other stuff to list. Next we have this. I thought these were really cool. I got these at an auction. These were silver plated engraved decanter tags. So these would be like little tags you hang over your liquor bottles that said like gin, bourbon, vodka, that type of thing. I won those at an auction. I'm pretty sure I paid $1 for them, and they sold for $19.99. I sold a Fitz and Floyd rabbit ceramic basket. Again, this came from an auction. I'd say maybe $2, $3, maybe even $1. I don't know if anyone else was even interested in this, or if it came on a flat with some other stuff. I'm not sure, but it wasn't much. Especially like, I won't pay much for a flat of stuff at an auction. If, you know, I try to keep in my head like what I'm going to at least list an item for and that type of thing. So I'm not going to go over any kind of crazy amount, because obviously you don't want to spend more than what you're going to make on the item. Anyway, that one sold for $29.99. And, you know, Fitz and Floyd is one of those hit or miss type of items in my opinion. Like sometimes, you might come across a piece that's worth a decent amount, and then the next piece is worthless. So, but this one here was, you know, a fairly decent one. The little ceramic rabbit baskets. I sold a Little Tikes dollhouse little pet dog. It was just the dog for the dollhouse. A lot of people buy replacements for things if they're trying to complete collections and that type of thing. That sold for $15.99, which isn't bad. I'm pretty sure that came out of like just like a Ziploc baggie full of random toys. I probably got it at a yard sale for $1. So that's not too shabby. I also sold a Little Tikes dollhouse high chair. So this is a little pink high chair. This one sold for $4.99, and I didn't pay anything for that. It was free. I found it in a free box at a yard sale. Next was a vintage from 1968. This was a board game called Mother's Helper. That sold for $99.99. It was complete. I did win that at an auction, and I'd say I paid maybe $10 or so for it, if that. Next was a vintage from 1979 bookmark. This was so cute. It was of a bookworm. That sold for $12.99. That came from a yard sale. I probably paid about a quarter for that. The next item did go to a subscriber named Margaret. This was a Kurt Adler Hershey's little Easter figure. This came in a lot of some other like Hershey's ornaments that Eric and I had won at an auction, and that sold for $9.99. Next we have a vintage. This is a miniature bottle of Nino Cerruti cologne. So this was just a mini bottle that sold for $35.99. There are a lot of people out there who collect miniature versions of perfumes and colognes and that type of thing, but also, you know, if it's a discontinued fragrance, then that helps as well. I sold a Sears punch set. This was a set of tools. Eric won these at an auction. I'm not sure what he paid for them or if they came with some other stuff, but those sold for $18.99. Next was a Fenton milk glass hobnail footed dish. This I'm pretty sure came on a tray of some other Fenton milk glass items I won at an auction. That sold for $12.99. I sold a bar of Lush Waylander soap. This came in one of my Lush subscription boxes. You typically see some Lush items mixed in with my CHINGs because I am subscribed to their subscription box, and I don't always want everything that I receive in my box. This sold for $15.99. I sold a Disney Department 56 Mickey, what was this? A treehouse stayover. So this was like a little village piece, a little Department 56 Disney village piece. Won this at an auction, and that sold for $84.99. Sold a pair of Earl Jeans Capris. These came from a fill-a-bag rummage sale, so $1 or less for those, and they sold for $19.99. Sold a pair of Red Wing hiking boots for $89.99. I'm pretty sure these ones came from a yard sale. I'd say I spent maybe 10 to 15 on those. Okay, so here's another Cat's Meow. This one was for Bob's Oceanfront Restaurant. I think this one was actually in Ocean City, New Jersey Cat's Meow, if I'm not mistaken. That one sold for $12.99, and it came from that same box of Cat's Meows that came from an auction. I sold another die-cast toy. This one was a cat crane truck that sold for $34.99. That did come from an auction, and I apologize, I don't have prices for absolutely everything. I always try to say prices like when I'm hauling my items, but I don't always remember between that point and the point that they sell, you know, what I paid. But always profit. Always, 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 always profit. Next we have a set of Bakelite. This was a child's spoon and knife set with Bakelite handles. These sold for $9.99, and these came with some Bakelite bangle bracelets that I had won at an auction. I haven't listed those yet. I know I had made mention that I was going to do a video on how to test for Bakelite. I promise that I will have a video like that at some point. Guys, I am so like, oh my gosh, it's so much work sometimes. Just, you know, I would absolutely love to put up a video every single day, but there is so much work involved with filming, with editing, with trying to list items. Like, you know, you can only do so much within a day's time, and I'm behind with everything, and I apologize. Anyway, I sold a vintage gem doll. This sold for $15.99. It did come from a yard sale, and I probably paid about 50 cents for her. This next item was another Lush item. This was the Tropical Fruit Body Lotion that sold for $25.99. So just an item that came from my subscription box that I didn't care for. Next we have another Department 56 Crinkles Halloween ornament. This one was of a pumpkin cat that sold for $29.99. We also have a Kurt Adler Angel Heights. This was a chapel. So this went to a little Angel Heights Village piece that sold for $24.99. That did come from a yard sale. At one point, Eric had purchased a whole bunch of these Kurt Adler Angel Heights Village pieces, and I don't know if we have any more left or not. We might. Next we have a pair of Reebok high top shoes that sold for $39.99. I had these forever. I'm pretty sure I picked those up at Goodwill a long time ago. Next item did go to a subscriber named Bonnie. This was, I thought this was so cool. It was a magnet. It was by a company called Museum with a Z. And it had like a Picasso style look to it. I think I got this at a yard sale. And that sold for $9.99. I probably paid maybe like a quarter or so for it. I sold a pair of faux turquoise cluster earrings for $19.99. Those did come from an auction where I had won like a couple pieces of jewelry, I'm pretty sure. Next was a men's Avon Friction Cologne that sold for $19.99. And then, so I had more than one of these to list, and for whatever reason I only listed the one. So once that one sold, I was like, well crap, I have more of these to list. So I listed up the rest of them. I had 5 more. So I did sell similar, and then I put it up as like quantity 5 available, and the same person who purchased that one bought all 5 of them, all the rest of them, for $99.95 altogether. So apparently they loved that scent of cologne, so I'm glad, right place, right time to get those out of there as quickly as possible. So that's awesome. Next item was also an Avon item. This was a Haiku Sunset Lotion that sold for $5.99. And as I stated, auction winnings, paid, you know, dollars for this stuff, or like trays full for like $1. Next we have a Pokemon Welch's Jelly Jar glass that sold for $9.99. I think that might have come from a yard sale, so maybe a quarter or 50 cents for that. I sold a carved marble elephant for $12.99. Again, probably a yard sale for no more than $1. I sold another mini cologne, or perfume I should say. This was a Ralph Lauren Safari miniature perfume that sold for $12.99. And those minis I had won at an auction, and I still have more of them to list. I sold a Sankyo piano music box for $15.99. Pretty sure that came on a flat that I won at an auction. I sold a Limoges vanity tray for $21.99. That took a while to sell. I definitely had that for a while, I feel like. And that did come from an auction. And again, it was on a flat of other stuff that I had won at the auction. Next item is a Lancome Multivital Moisturizer that sold for $19.99. Pretty sure that came from a yard sale, so quarter 50 cents for that. And the last thing I have for this cha-ching is another Cat's Meow. This one was for Ocean City, Maryland, and it was of the trolley shuttle. That sold for $12.99. I think that one I picked up actually at a yard sale though. Probably paid $1 for that. So here we are at the end of the video. I just talk about some random things within this cha-ching. So within this cha-ching, I had one person cancel their order. They had purchased something and then messaged saying that they didn't actually want to purchase it, so I canceled their order. Then I had a return. Someone had purchased something. It was like a body spray, one of those men's body sprays that are in the those metal type of cans, kind of like what Axe is in. This one was like a Nautica body spray, and typically I always test the sprayers on things, like whether that's perfumes, body sprays, whatnot, because, you know, sometimes the sprayers don't work properly. So when I listed this, the sprayer was working, but I didn't retest it after, you know, I went to ship it out. So I don't know if something happened between the time it was listed to the time that, you know, it sat before it sold. Because they said that they couldn't get the sprayer to work. Like, they tried everything, including like running it under hot water and that type of thing. So I just had them return it to me, and I gave them a full refund. And when I got it back, I couldn't get the sprayer to work either, so I did just throw the item away. It wasn't worth like a ton or anything like that, so it wasn't that big of a deal. I felt bad about it though. You know, you never want that type of stuff to happen. And then within this cha-ching, there were 2 items, not anything that I made mention of. I didn't even put these in my cha-chings because, well, quite frankly, they were both losses. There were 2 items that arrived broken to their respectful buyers. Oh, and there was a cha-ching. So at this point, like, that was really weird. Like, I had 2 broken things, like, that both were shipped, like, the same day kind of thing, which makes me think something happened in transit where, like, some big box of some sort, like, fell on my packages or something like that, because it's just so odd. I mean, stuff happens. Breaks and stuff happen. They're, you know, out of our control after, you know, they leave our hands, as long as, you know, you're packing it good and well and sturdy. So it just was so weird, because it really, knock on wood, rarely ever happens where, you know, things get broken. And it was so crazy. It was 2 things that shipped the same exact day. It just makes me think something happened somewhere in a mailroom or a sorting facility or something like that. But anyway, those items, obviously, I didn't have them return them. I just gave them a full refund and apologized for, you know, that happening. But thankfully, knock on wood again, that hasn't happened in a while. But other than that, I feel like not much is really going on with eBay. I feel like sales are still holding pretty steady. Speaking of which, let's see what that cha-ching was. I got another bid on that vintage Gymboree little vintage 90s bibs. It's up to $24.50. Vintage children's kids clothes, guys. Some of it can sell really well. I paid like a quarter, 50 cents. No, it was a quarter for that. But yeah, other than that, I feel like things are just chugging along. Yeah, I'm happy with how sales are. Obviously, we always want more sales and more sales and more sales and more sales, but you know, considering we're in what, June right now, and they're still, you know, doing fine, so can't really complain too much. So you guys have to let me know what you thought of this cha-ching, how things are going for you on eBay, if you've been having any issues. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you next time.